There's a piece of advice that sounds virtuous, but it keeps sabotaging good people. Phrases like, try harder, push through, be tougher on yourself, just grind. And here's the controversial part. In a lot of areas, that advice is like poison in pretty packaging. People force discipline, crank up self-pressure, try to control their mindset. And then, out of nowhere, procrastination shows up and fatigue hits. You ask yourself how that is possible because you're trying harder and getting worse results. It's because effort isn't the problem. The direction of the effort is. Notice something simple. When you try to yell your way through your own mind, your brain registers threat, not progress. Anxiety becomes fuel, and that fuel burns fast. You might perform for a while, but you pay interest later. You lose consistency, you start avoiding the habit, and one slip turns into the end. It's like trying to relax by force. The more you demand calm, the faster your mind races. The irony is you're trying to get stronger, but the method teaches your body to escape. And that looks like laziness when it's really internal resistance. The good news is this is fixable, and it doesn't require becoming Zen or dropping your goals. The adjustment is smarter. Stop using force in the wrong place and switch to alignment. Build a system that makes it easier to show up even when your mental state isn't helping. And here's a quick payoff. In just a few minutes, you can tell whether what you're doing calls for push harder or turn the volume down. From here on, it'll be clear when effort becomes self-sabotage, and how to flip that switch using a simple model and 3 practical changes anyone can apply without drama. When you force yourself every single day, your brain doesn't read it as discipline. It reads it as a threat, and then a cruel little trick happens. Your body goes on alert, your mind tightens up, and your mental state becomes the enemy of your goal. In that situation, procrastination isn't laziness. It's an intelligent escape from discomfort. You feel tired for no reason. You come up with creative excuses, and even simple tasks start to feel like a survival test. And the more pressure and self-criticism you use to function, the more your brain learns that this hurts. The result is less consistency and more instability. From the outside, it looks like effort, but on the inside, it's wear and tear. And accumulated wear and tear doesn't turn into growth. It turns into that urge to disappear right when it's time to act. Think of a guitar string that's out of tune. If your only solution is tighten it more, sooner or later the string will snap. And when it finally snaps, there will be no sound at all. Consistency works the same way. Too much tension might get you results for a few days, but it charges you later. It's like when you try an aggressive routine with hard training, intense studying, perfect eating, and everything maxed out, no breathing room. The first few days it felt like you had finally gotten your life together. But then the side effects hit. Irritability, bad sleep, choppy focus, low energy. Your body started bargaining with thoughts like, I'll make up for it tomorrow, and before you realized it, you were stuck in a tug-of-war with your own discipline. A practical way out is simple but not glamorous. Lower the tension and increase the repeatability. This will adjust the system to fit a human, not a machine. For example, for 7 days, replace all or nothing with good and consistent, choosing a target you can hit even on a bad day, because the problem isn't failing once. It's when one slip turns into that dangerous thought saying it's over. A small slip often turns into a huge disaster for one specific reason. Your mind loves turning an event into an identity. When you miss one day, the mistake stops being a bad day and becomes proof that you have no discipline, that you're hopeless, that it'll always be like this. Then shame shows up, self-pressure increases, anxiety tightens, and your brain tries to protect you from discomfort by escaping. More procrastination, more distractions, more well-rehearsed excuses. It's like your inner system switches to soap opera mode and starts narrating how you ruined everything, even when you didn't. But that drama doesn't improve consistency. It just increases sabotage because you start acting like someone who already lost before you even try to come back. The shift happens when you understand that consistency isn't never falling. Consistency is coming back quickly without putting yourself on trial. Picture a GPS. If you miss a turn, it recalculates and moves on. But a lot of people do the opposite. They miss one turn and turn off the GPS like that punishes the mistake when it really just delays the trip. A practical fix that works is having a comeback protocol. Like, when I mess up, I do 5 minutes of the basics today. Even if it's reading 2 pages, walking 10 minutes, writing 1 paragraph, organizing 1 task. That reduces the emotional power of "it's over" and trains your brain to link effort with safety, not threat. And then comes a question that changes the game. Does all effort work the same way? Or are there tasks where pushing harder actually makes everything worse? There's a quiet mistake that takes down a lot of good people, treating every goal like it's the same kind of task. For external, mechanical tasks, more effort usually equals more results. The more you do, the more you move forward. That's a linear curve. Effort goes up, results go up. But life isn't only that. In many areas, effort has diminishing returns. The first hours of studying help a lot, but past a limit your mind gets heavy, your attention slips, and you reread the same sentence like you're chewing glass. The same thing happens with excessive training. Too many meetings trying to fix everything today. Your brain doesn't become a super machine because you insist harder. Often it becomes a radio full of static. And what looked like discipline turns into burnout. And then there's the third curve, which is the most deceptive one. The inverted curve, where the more force you apply, the worse it gets. Sleep is a classic example. When you try to sleep by force, you only wake your mind up more. Creativity too. When you try to produce a perfect idea under pressure, your mind stiffens, anxiety rises, and inspiration slips away like a wet bar of soap. Talking casually, feeling confident, stopping caring about people's opinions. These depend on your mental state, not your inner yelling. That's why this sticks. With internal things, your volume has a sweet spot. Past that, it becomes noise. A good sign you went past the limit is when you're doing the task, but inside you're fighting yourself. And when that fight starts, there's usually a hidden villain behind it. Perfection. Perfection often disguises itself as ambition, but inside it functions as rigidity. One part of your mind likes a clean plan, but another part hates feeling like a machine with no choice, no breathing room, no space to be human. When someone builds a perfect plan, the brain gets the message, you can't fail. And that message becomes pressure, pressure becomes anxiety, and anxiety becomes internal resistance. Then sabotage is born. Not because you're weak, but because the system is too tight. Funny enough, the more intelligent and detail-oriented someone is, the more they fall into this trap, because they can design a plan so optimal it becomes impossible to sustain. And when they can't sustain it, frustration hits, self-criticism explodes, and they trade consistency for guilt. You see it everywhere. All or nothing dieting, where one slip becomes a binge. A packed schedule, where one surprise turns into quitting the whole day. A good image to remember is a fist full of sand. The harder you squeeze, the more sand leaks through your fingers. The same happens with energy, focus, and discipline. When you try to control everything by force, your mind finds a way to escape. A practical switch here is building planned breathing room, lighter intensity days, a good enough rule, and a simple plan B for days that go off script. That builds a system that doesn't break at the first hit, which leads to the next shift. Instead of trying to feel motivated or ready, how do you make it easier to show up even without wanting to? The golden rule is simple and freeing. The goal isn't to feel ready. The goal is to make showing up easier. A lot of people wait for the perfect mindset as if life is going to give them a green light. But consistency is born when your system reduces friction, not when you turn into a robot. When a goal requires repetition, the best investment isn't more pressure. It's more alignment. Adjust how you act so you don't trigger internal resistance. That changes everything because your brain stops linking effort with threat and starts linking effort with safety. And when your mind feels safe, discipline gets lighter, procrastination drops, anxiety loses space. Sounds too simple, but that's exactly why it works. The first lever is a minimum version for bad days. If you can't do 100%, do 20% and still show up. The second lever is environment over motivation. Make the start easier. Put the clothes out, open the document, keep your phone far away, block distracting tabs, leave a visible reminder. Anything that lowers the friction of beginning counts. The third lever is adjustable load without guilt. It's not lost discipline. It's a system adjustment so you don't break. A practical way to apply this is choosing a weekly minimum standard and tracking small wins, because your brain loves visible progress. Consistency comes from a system that can handle a real human with bad days and messiness. And that opens the final part. How do you put all this into a simple model with clear steps so you stop getting weaker by pushing harder and start improving by pushing smarter? At the end of the day, the shift isn't becoming tougher. It's becoming smarter with your effort. Because pushing harder by force might look like discipline. But when your brain learns habit equals threat, your mind starts hitting the brakes with procrastination, fatigue, and escape. From today on, the measuring stick changes. Instead of asking, how do I force myself? You ask, how do I align myself? What's the minimum version that keeps consistency alive even on a bad day? What environment change cuts temptation at the root? Where does the load need to be adjusted so the system doesn't break? And here's the real call out. What's stopping you isn't lack of ability. It's sticking to a method that drains you and then calls you weak. So run a simple test today. Pick one area where you're stuck and make one small change immediately. Define a 20% minimum version and do it just to teach your brain that showing up is safe. Set up your environment to make starting easier because motivation is unstable, but an easy path is consistent. And when a slip happens, come back fast, even if it's 5 minutes of the basics. Now, a question worth gold. Which habit are you treating like a war when it should be treated like a system? And another, even more direct. What would change in your life if you stopped trying to prove yourself and started building a process that can handle good days and bad days? If this video made something click for you, comment one sentence. Less force, more alignment, and say which area you'll apply it to first. And if you want to keep learning how to stay disciplined without destroying yourself in the process, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the next videos will go deeper into building consistency, focus, and lightness without falling into the try harder trap every day.